In this video, we're reviewing Bocks under NFHS rules and how you as an umpire should use those rules to enforce it properly on the field. We'll also review case plays from this week's quiz, and if you're not already, you can sign up to receive our weekly quizzes in the video description. Hi everyone, Patrick Farber here with GHSA Baseball Umpire Development and Umpire Classroom, where we help umpires to develop their knowledge and skills. If you're new here, please help us in reaching our goal of getting to 1,000 subscribers. It's greatly appreciated. Let's get started. The NFHS Baseball rules are very similar to what constitutes a balk in both professional and collegiate baseball. But when it comes to enforcing balks properly at the high school level, we need to be very familiar with the NFHS rules and how to enforce them. So to start, there are 4 definitions that come into play when discussing balks. Easily enough, the first one is the term balk. Rule 2, Section 3 covers the definition of a balk, and it reads, "A balk is an illegal act committed by the pitcher with a runner or runners on base, which entitles each runner to advance 1 base." Next, let's review the definition of an illegal pitch. Rule 2, Section 18 says, "An illegal pitch is an illegal act committed by the pitcher with no runner on base, which results in a ball being awarded to the batter. When an illegal pitch occurs with a runner or runners on base, it is ruled a balk." So with those 2 definitions, we know that the difference between a balk and an illegal pitch is really focused on whether or not there are already runners on base. Now, an interesting definition that applies to balks and can be hard to find is in Rule 2, Section 28, which covers pitching. Article 5 specifically defines a feint, and it says that a feint is a movement which simulates the start of a pitch or a throw to a base and which is used in an attempt to deceive a runner. Now, it's important to note that the term feint never shows up in the definition of an illegal pitch or a balk. Neither does the phrase attempt to deceive the runner. This is a common misconception that a lot of umpires try to use when describing a balk to a coach. It's not cut and dry that a balk is simply an attempt to deceive the runner. Now, finally, the last definition I want you to be aware of has to do with dead balls. Rule 2, Section 11 says the ball is dead when actions in Rule 5-1 occur. Rule 5, Section 1, Article 1 starts with the ball becomes dead when, and in paragraph K continues the ball is immediately dead when a balk or an illegal pitch is committed. Now, this is somewhat different from other levels of baseball, and to help you understand the spirit of the rule, I want to share this rationale with you from the NFHS. Quote, "After working for several years to simplify the administration of the balk illegal pitch rule, the committee decided to make all balks and illegal pitches immediate dead balls in 1985. Since the ball is dead immediately, the 1 base award is automatic because there are no circumstances for the offense to gain more than 1 base. Also, nothing can happen even if a pitcher delivers a pitch or attempts to pick a runner off base." So obviously these definitions aren't going to explain everything that is a balk or how you're going to enforce every balk, but it's extremely important to understand that as soon as a balk or an illegal pitch occurs, the ball is immediately dead. So now let's see what actions constitute a balk. You can find these in Rule 6, which covers pitching, Section 2, which covers infractions by the pitcher. Article 4 is where balks are covered. It says, if there is a runner or runners, any of the following acts by a pitcher while he is touching the pitcher's plate is a balk. The first action that constitutes a balk is covered in 6-2-4A. It says, any feinting toward the batter or first base, or any dropping of the ball, even though accidental, and the ball does not cross a foul line. First, real quickly, just want to cover, if the pitcher does drop the ball while on the mound and it happens to roll all the way beyond a foul line, then it's just going to be called a ball. Second, this is the part of the rule book that explains that a pitcher can't feint a throw to the plate or to first, but by not including it, a pitcher in NFHS rules can feint to third base so long as it's occupied. All that being said, we know that when the pitcher disengages the rubber, they no longer have the responsibilities of a pitcher, and at that point, he would be able to feint towards first. He just has to make sure he disengages the rubber before feinting over to first. Next, it is a balk when 6-2-4B, failing to step with the non-pivot foot directly toward a base, occupied or unoccupied, when throwing or feinting there in an attempt to put out or drive back a runner, or throwing or feinting to an unoccupied base when it is not an attempt to put out or drive back a runner. First, this rule explains that they have to step in the direction of where they are going to throw the ball or feint throwing the ball. And they say it must be to either drive a runner back or an attempt to put out a runner who might be taking off for that base. For example, with the runner on first, if they start stealing towards second early, then the pitcher can throw to second to make a play on that runner without having to disengage the rubber. Next, 6-2-4C says, it is a balk when the pitcher makes an illegal pitch from any position with runners on. This is hitting back at the key point that an illegal pitch with runners on is just a balk. Next, 6-2-4D describes the next action that constitutes a balk with runners on base. It is failing to pitch to the batter in a continuous motion immediately after any movement of any part of the body such as he habitually uses in his delivery. Now, I do want to point out a pretty big note on this rule, and that's this key exception that the batter can never cause a balk. So, for example, it's not a balk if the batter steps out with 1 foot, steps out with 2 feet, or requests time from the umpire, and that leads to the pitcher not continuing his pitch. Now, if he steps out with 1 foot, or goes to ask for time from the umpire, and that causes the pitcher to stop, we will simply call time, call to scratch, and start again. If situation B were to occur and the batter steps out with both feet, then we would have a strike assessed to the batter. Next, 6-2-4E describes the balk that with the runner on base, the action of taking a hand off the ball while in a set position, unless he pitches to the batter or throws to a base, or he steps towards and feints a throw to second or third base. And finally, in 6-2-4F, it is a balk with runners on base when the pitcher fails to pitch to the batter when the entire non-pivot foot passes behind the perpendicular plane of the back edge of the pitcher's plate, except when feinting or throwing to second base in an attempt to put out a runner. Now, real quickly on this rule, I want to point out that, again, it said the entire free foot has to go beyond the back edge of the rubber. This is extremely rare. It's very hard to do it. If you try doing it yourself, it's hard to keep your balance for it. So be aware that most likely this isn't going to happen. Now, those are all balks that can occur with the pitcher engaged to the rubber, but there actually is a balk that can occur with the pitcher not engaged to the rubber. Rule 6-2-5 points this out, and it reads, it is also a balk if a runner or runners are on base and the pitcher, while he is not touching the pitcher's plate, makes any movement naturally associated with his pitch, or he places his feet on or astride the pitcher's plate, or positions himself within approximately 5 feet of the pitcher's plate without having the ball. Now, this rule is critical to know because it's the one that comes into play with a hidden ball trick, so just keep this in mind if it happens in your game. So now that we know what a balk is by the rules, let's talk about how we enforce them. We already know it's an automatic dead ball, so let's discuss what the awards are. In Rule 8, which covers base running, Section 3, which covers base running award, Rule 8-3-1A reads that each runner except the batter runner is awarded 1 base when there is a balk. And it continues, if the award is the penalty for an infraction such as a balk, the award is from the base occupied at the time of the infraction. So now that we've quickly reviewed the rules that describe a balk and tell us how to enforce a balk, let's go ahead and work through this week's case plays to help improve our understanding of the rules. Case play number 1. With R3 on third, B2 has 3 balls and 2 strikes. F1 balks, but then delivers a pitch. The pitch is over F2's and B2's heads, and B2 does not swing. R3 goes home. Is the balk ignored? Does R3 score? Does the pitch count as ball 4, with the batter runner being awarded first base? So breaking this down, let's review the first question. First, does the balk get ignored? Simply, the answer to that is no. As soon as the balk occurred, the ball is dead, and the balk is the last thing to have occurred. Now, does R3 score? Of course, the answer there is yes, because R3 is awarded home because of the balk. Now, the last question is, does ball 4 count? And does the batter runner get awarded first base? The answer is no, because the pitch never happened. The ball was dead as soon as the balk was called, which had to have happened before the ball would have gotten to the plate. Thus, there was no pitch, and the batter still needs to stay up to bat because they haven't gotten ball 4. Now, let's review case play number 2. With R3 at third and R1 at first, F1 is in contact with the pitcher's plate, but has not yet come set. He brings his pitching hand to his mouth and distinctly wipes it off. Is this A, legal, B, an illegal pitch and a ball is added to the count. C, a balk where R3 is awarded home and R1 is awarded second. Or D, a balk and an illegal pitch where R3 is awarded home, R1 is awarded second, and a ball is added to the count. So the answer to this question is C. This is a balk. We need to remember that the rules clearly state that if an illegal pitch occurs with runners on base, it simply becomes a balk. We're never going to have both a balk and an illegal pitch on the same action. It's either one or the other. In this case, since there are runners on base, it's going to be a balk. Next, let's review two scenarios in case play number 3. With R3 on third and R1 on first, F1 stretches and comes set. He then swings his entire non-pivot foot behind the back edge of the pitcher's plate and steps towards second, and scenario 1, throws the ball to second in an attempt to retire R1, who is advancing there. Is this legal or is this a balk? So the correct answer to this one is that this is legal. Now, the reason it is legal is that the pitcher is allowed to throw to an unoccupied base for the purpose of trying to retire a runner. In this case, with R1 stealing second base, there's going to be a play at second on R1. Next, scenario 2. With R3 on third and R1 on first, F1 stretches and comes set. He then swings his entire non-pivot foot behind the back edge of the pitcher's plate, steps towards second, and feints the throw to second to drive R1 back to first, who has neither attempted nor feinted in advance to second. In scenario 2, this would be a balk, the reason being that because there was no attempt to make a play on anyone at second base, the pitcher cannot feint or throw towards that base. In our next case play, with R1 on first, F1, a left-handed pitcher, attempts a pickoff while stepping at an angle, but to the home plate side of a 45-degree angle between the center of the pitcher's plate and between home and first base. Is the correct answer A, this is a balk? The requirement to step directly toward requires a step on the right side of a 45-degree angle? Or B, this is not a balk, there is no requirement that a step directly toward be officiated using a 45-degree line. So this is going to be an interpretation that doesn't exist in a lot of other levels and isn't exactly spelled out in the rulebook either. Instead, you'd have to go to your rules casebook to see that in NFHS rules, we do use a 45-degree line to determine whether or not a step was directly towards a base. The casebook specifically says the umpire should use a 45-degree angle between center of the pitcher's plate and between home and first base. On to the next play. With R3 on third and R1 on first, F1 comes set. He then feints toward third but does not step towards third. He follows this with a step towards and throw to first base. Is this legal or is this a balk? The correct answer to this case play is that it is a balk. While F1 is allowed to feint towards third, he still has to step in that direction before doing so. While the pitcher is allowed to feint towards third, the pitcher still has to step in that direction when feinting. Now, interesting enough, the casebook says that the pitcher might, while he is on the plate, step toward occupied third and feint a throw, and then turn to step toward first and throw there with or without disengaging the pitcher's plate. If F1 steps and feints to first, he must first disengage the pitcher's plate, or he is guilty of a balk. Next, let's review case play number 5. With a runner or runners on base, F1 assumes the set position. He stretches his arms above his head, brings them down together, and pauses with the ball in both hands in front of the body, after which he separates hands and then steps back off the pitcher's plate with his pivot foot. Is this legal or is this a balk? The correct answer is that this is a balk. Once the pitcher is set with his hands together and then brings them apart, he is committed to delivering the ball either to the plate or for a pickoff. Now let's look at case play number 6. With a runner or runners on base, F1 assumes the set position. He stretches his arms above his head, brings them down together, and pauses with the ball in both hands in front of the body, after which he steps back off the pitcher's plate with his pivot foot and feints a throw to unoccupied first. Is this legal or is this a balk? So in this situation, it would be legal. The reason being, he steps off first and then feints to first. Because he stepped off, he is no longer required to follow pitching rules and can make that feint legally. Next, case play number 7. With R2 on second base, F1 wheels and fakes a throw to second on a pickoff attempt. As R2 dives back to the base, F4 and F6 run into short center field as if chasing an errant throw. R2, seeing this, takes off for third base where he's thrown out by F1. Is this A, a balk? F1 cannot fake a throw to second on a pickoff. B, obstruction by the defense for confusing the runner. C, unsportsmanlike conduct. Or D, illegal play. The correct here is answer D, that this is illegal play. Remember, the pitcher is allowed to feint towards second base since there's a runner on it, and this is not considered obstruction or unsportsmanlike conduct in the rules. The case book specifically puts this on the base coaches as having to better inform their players as to where the ball is. Next, on to case play number 8. With R2 and R1 on second and first bases respectively, F1, who is a left-handed pitcher, is in the set position. He stretches and comes to a complete stop with the ball in the glove completely below the chin in front of his body. He then lifts his entire non-pivot foot and swings it behind the perpendicular plane of the back edge of the pitcher's plate, and in situation A, throws to F3 in an attempt to pick off R1. In situation B, continues through, throws, or feints a throw to second base. In the first situation, this would be a balk. Once his free foot goes entirely behind the back edge of the rubber, he can only throw to second for making a play, or has to throw towards the plate. And of course, with that explanation, you know that the second answer is going to be that it is not a balk and it is legal for them to step off and feint to second. Next, case play number 9. R2 is on second and R1 is on first. After F1 has come set, he steps with his non-pivot foot, situation A, towards second and does not throw the ball. Situation B, towards first or home and does not throw the ball. In the first situation, this is legal, as the pitcher is allowed to feint a throw to occupied second base. In the second situation, this is a balk because the pitcher has to deliver when stepping towards the plate or first base. Next, case play number 10. With R1 on first base and 2 outs, F1 attempts to pick off R1. As F1 pivots to throw, he realizes that F3 is not on the base, but in his normal defensive position. F1 completes the throw without interruption to F3 in his normal defensive position. Is this A? This is always a balk. The throw must be directly to the bag. B, this is always legal. F1 can throw to the first baseman regardless of where the first baseman is standing, so long as there is a runner on first base. Or C, this is the umpire's judgment if F3 was in proximity of the base. The correct answer to this is going to be C. So long as the first baseman is in proximity to first and proximity to making the play on the runner, there is no balk. The case book says that proximity is umpire's judgment and is based on whether the fielder is close enough to legitimately make a play on the runner. Case play number 11. With R1 at first, F1 in the stretch position steps quickly backwards off the pitcher's plate and with a motion much like his pitching, delivers the throw to the plate where B2 hits the throw. Is this A, a balk, B, interference by the batter, or C, legal and treated as a regular pitch being hit? In this situation, it would be a balk. The reason being, the rule is that while a pitcher is not engaged to the rubber, the pitcher shall not make any movement naturally associated with a pitch. This leads us to a similar situation in case play 12. With R1 at first, F1 in the stretch position steps quickly backwards off the pitcher's plate and with a motion much like his pitching delivery, throws to the plate where R1 is thrown out stealing by F2 on a pitch out. Again, this is going to be a balk because, as described in the case play, the pitcher, not engaged to the rubber, simulates what looks like a pitch when throwing the ball towards the plate. Next, case play number 13. With R1 on first base, the umpire calls balk just as F1 delivers the pitch. B2 hits the ball over the outfield fence for a home run. Is it A, the home run stands, or B, the balk makes the ball dead and there is no home run? B2 remains at the plate and R1 is awarded second base. The correct answer here is going to be B. The ball is immediately dead when balk is called, and for that reason, the batter can't have hit a home run. B2 will remain at the plate and R1 will be awarded second base. Finally, our last question is a true-false question. When a balk is called, it never includes the awarding of a ball in addition to an advance by the runners. This statement would be true. Again, you can't have both an illegal pitch and a balk on the same situation. If there are runners on base, an illegal pitch is always going to be a balk. So there you have it, our review of the NFHS Bock rules and how to enforce them in your games. If you found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out the rest of our videos. It's greatly appreciated having you here. And if you want to receive next week's quiz, you can sign up in the video description. Thanks again for watching this week's video, and as always, I look forward to seeing you on the field.